So this Karen from my HOA thought she could just steal my firewood all winter long. But what she didn't know was that I'm petty and patient. And I was about to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. By the time I was done with her, she'd be banned from the HOA board, her husband would barely speak to her, and the entire neighborhood would know exactly what kind of person she really was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. It was October 2023. I just moved into this nice suburban neighborhood in Colorado. Beautiful views, friendly neighbors, or so I thought. I'd spent nearly $800 buying a full cord of premium seasoned oak firewood for the winter. Stacked it neatly right next to my garage, covered with a tarp. Now, I'm the kind of person who minds my own business. I go to work, come home, enjoy my fireplace on cold nights. Simple. Peaceful. But there was one person in this neighborhood who couldn't let anyone have peace. Karen. Not even joking, her actual name was Karen. 62 years old, HOA Board President, drove a white Lexus SUV, and had made it her personal mission to make everyone's life miserable. We're talking measuring grass height with a ruler, reporting people for Christmas lights being up one day too long, calling code enforcement if your trash can was visible from the street. But what she did to me, that was personal. And what I did back? Let's just say, sometimes the best revenge is the kind that completely destroys someone's reputation while staying 100% legal. Here's what happened. It started small. I came home from work one day in early November, and I noticed my firewood stack looked shorter. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I'd used more than I thought. But then it happened again. And again. By the third week of November, I'd lost probably 15 to 20 logs. That's when I knew something was up. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I set up a cheap security camera pointing at my woodpile. Figured maybe it was some teenagers pulling a prank, or maybe someone was genuinely desperate and needed firewood. The very next day, I checked the footage. And you're not going to believe what I saw. There she was. Karen. Bold as brass, at 2:47 p.m., pulling up in her Lexus, walking right onto my property, and loading my firewood into her trunk. Not just one or two logs either. She took 12 logs in broad daylight. I was furious. This woman lived in a house 3 times the size of mine, probably made twice my salary between her and her husband, and she was stealing from me? I called her that same evening. Polite. Professional. Hey Karen, I noticed some of my firewood has been going missing. Do you happen to know anything about that? This woman. She had the audacity to say, well, you have so much, I didn't think you'd mind sharing with your neighbors. Community spirit and all that. Sharing? You didn't ask. You stole. She then goes, besides, the HOA bylaws state that anything visible from the street should contribute to neighborhood aesthetics. Your woodpile is an eyesore. I'm doing you a favor by reducing it. I'm not even kidding. She tried to gaslight me into thinking she was helping me while stealing my property. Now, I could have called the police. Filed a report for theft. But here's the thing about people like Karen, they've been getting away with this behavior their entire lives. A police report? She'd pay a fine, play the victim, and nothing would really change. No. I wanted something better. Something that would expose her for who she really was to the entire neighborhood. I spent the next week documenting everything. I let her keep stealing. Every few days, like clockwork, she'd show up and take more firewood. I captured it all on camera. Different angles. Time stamps. Clear footage of her face, her car, her license plate. But I needed more than just theft footage. I needed to make this perfect. So here's what I did. I went to Home Depot and bought something genius. Fake decorative logs. The kind made from recycled compressed sawdust that look exactly like real firewood but are basically garbage for actually burning. Cost me about $60 for a bundle that looked like premium wood. But here's the kicker. I also bought some logs that were painted. Like, craft store decorative logs that were clearly not meant for burning. Bright colors underneath a realistic wood grain exterior that would only show up once you started burning them. I strategically placed these fake logs throughout my remaining real wood pile. Mixed them in so you couldn't tell the difference just by looking. Then I put my actual good firewood in my garage where Karen couldn't see it. The pile outside? Probably 60% garbage logs, 40% real wood. And I waited. While I was waiting for Karen to take the bait, I started doing some investigating. I posted in our neighborhood Facebook group asking if anyone else had experienced missing items. Gardening tools, decorations, firewood, anything. And oh boy. The responses I got. Turns out, Karen had a history. Missing solar lights, borrowed garden hoses that never came back, potted plants that disappeared from front porches. At least 7 neighbors reported suspicious activity, and multiple people mentioned seeing Karen's Lexus in their driveways when they weren't home. I privately messaged each of these people. Asked if they had any proof, any cameras, any witnesses. 3 of them had doorbell camera footage. Gold. I compiled everything into a folder. Dates, times, videos, screenshots of her nasty HOA violation notices she'd sent people for petty nonsense. I was building a case. December rolls around. It's getting cold. And sure enough, I see on my camera that Karen has taken at least 30 of my fake logs over the past 2 weeks. Then it happened. I'm home one Saturday evening, and I hear screaming from down the street. I'm talking loud, angry screaming. My neighbor texts me, "Are you seeing this? Karen's having a meltdown." I walk down the street, and there's a crowd gathering outside Karen's house. Smoke is pouring out her front door. Not dangerous fire smoke, just thick, black, chemical smoke from those fake logs burning in her fireplace. Her husband is furious. Apparently, those compressed sawdust logs, when burned, created this toxic-smelling smoke that set off every smoke detector in their house and left a black residue all over their white marble fireplace surround. And the painted logs? They released fumes that made the whole house smell like burnt chemicals. Karen storms out of her house, sees me standing there with other neighbors, and she loses it. You did this. You put fake wood in your pile on purpose." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Karen, that's my firewood on my property. Why would you know what kind of wood I have unless you've been taking it?" The other neighbors are looking at each other. Someone goes, "Wait, you've been taking his firewood?" Karen's face went red. She tried to backtrack. "He said I could have some community sharing." That's when I pulled out my phone. "Really? Because I have 3 weeks of security footage showing you taking my property without permission. Would you like me to show everyone?" Her husband's eyes went wide. "Karen, what is he talking about?" The crowd is getting bigger now. This is prime neighborhood drama. Someone literally brought out popcorn. I didn't even need to play the video. Her face told everyone everything they needed to know. The next day, I requested an emergency HOA meeting. Sent the formal request with all my documentation attached. Video evidence of Karen stealing from me and 3 other neighbors. Screenshots of her abusive messages to homeowners. Records of her violating her own HOA authority. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. You better believe everyone showed up. It was like the Super Bowl of HOA meetings. I presented my case calmly. Professional. Showed the videos on a projector. Showed the receipts from my firewood purchase. Showed the timestamps proving she'd stolen approximately $400 worth of wood from me alone. Then the other neighbors spoke up. The garden hose. The solar lights. The potted plants. One guy even had footage of Karen taking his outdoor thermometer. Karen tried to defend herself. "This is a witch hunt. I'm being targeted because I enforce the rules." The other board members weren't having it. Even the ones who usually sided with her looked disgusted. They called for a vote. Should Karen be removed from the HOA board? Unanimous. Every single person voted to remove her. Some people literally applauded. But it got better. Her husband, who'd been sitting in the back looking absolutely mortified, stood up and announced that he'd be personally reimbursing everyone Karen had stolen from, plus damages. He wrote me a check for $800 on the spot. Then he looked at his wife and said, "We'll talk about this at home." The look on his face. That marriage was struggling. Within a week, Karen resigned from the board entirely. Not just as president, completely off the board. The new HOA president? The nice retired teacher who actually cared about the community. First order of business? Revising all of Karen's ridiculous rules and dropping dozens of pending violations. So what happened to Karen? Last I heard, she and her husband were in marriage counseling. She barely leaves her house anymore. When she does, she avoids eye contact with everyone. The Lexus? He made her sell it. Apparently it was part of their downsizing after he found out she'd been spending their money on other things too. Turns out the firewood theft was just the tip of the iceberg. Here's what I learned from this whole experience. 1. Document everything. In this day and age, cameras are cheap and evidence is king. Without that footage, it would have been my word against hers. 2. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's letting someone expose themselves. I didn't ruin Karen. I just gave her enough rope, and she hung herself with it. 3. Community matters. Once other people started speaking up, it created a wave Karen couldn't fight against. Stand up for yourself, and others will stand with you. Did I feel bad about the fake firewood? Not even a little bit. It was MY property on MY land. If she hadn't been stealing, she never would have burned it. The cost to her? Her reputation, her position, her marriage's trust, and about $2,000 in reimbursements and fireplace cleaning. The cost to me? $60 in fake logs and the satisfaction of watching a bully finally face consequences. Have you ever dealt with an HOA Karen? Drop your stories in the comments. And if you enjoyed watching justice get served, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories of petty revenge done right. Remember, don't get mad. Don't get even. Get smart.